Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to give you my March wrap up. A little bit of a low energy today, I'm not gonna lie, but we're gonna try to fake it. March was not the best month for me, personally, in my private life. So a lot happened with some family members, and then my dog got hit by a car. He's recovering pretty well, but I just was not reading. I wasn't focusing on anything other than what happened. I only finished 5 books, which I think was less than February, and then I DNF'd one. So I did read a Ruby Dixon novel, but it wasn't part of the Ice Planet Barbarian series, which I love. I read the first book in the dragon series that she has, Fire in His Blood. This is a fantasy erotic romance. We have Shifter dragon love interest. This series takes place in a post-apocalyptic world where this portal opened and alien dragons from another world came to Earth, and they just started bulldozing everything on Earth. There's human settlements for the most part, and because this is Ruby Dixon erotic romance, these dragon shifters fall in love with human women. That's pretty much it. This series is a little more bleak than the Ice Planet Barbarians one. This one has a bit of a darker world, and the romance wasn't necessarily my favorite. I'm guessing that maybe Ruby Dixon has a hard time starting series, since the first Ice Planet Barbarians book was kind of rough as well, and then it got better, and then I found my eventual favorite books within that series. I am interested in this one, and I know that she's pretty much wrapped up this series. It was hard for her to get through the series mid-pandemic. I thought this was okay. I gave it 3 stars. Looking forward to other people in this series. This one was just average, but the concept is cool. I'm interested, but it can be better. So then after that, I read Queen Takes King by Jolie Sue Burkhart. This is the second book in this vampire reverse harem series. I love the first one. It was really good. In the sequel, we did get more of a reverse harem, where in the first book she only had 2 love interests, and this one she has 4 or 5, and that was all fun and dandy and all that. But for the length of this book and the amount of steamy erotic scenes that we got, I felt I had a disconnect with the story overall. I don't care about the story because it's not interesting enough for me, but I feel this author is having a hard time balancing this plot, or any plot, with the romance. Looking back on it, I don't remember what the plot of this was, but I can remember the love interest and stuff. So if that tells you something about the story, yeah, it's still fun and entertaining. I think it's really well written, really cool vampire world as well, very different than what I've ever read before. But we'll see, because I don't know the big overall threat to our main character, what the plot line is overall. I still don't get it or remember, because it wasn't significant enough. This next book I kind of picked up on a whim because I saw it on TikTok, and that is Captured by Monsters. I picked this up because it was a reverse harem, and I was maybe I should just read more RH to see if I'll have a good time in this pretty shitty month. I DNF'd this at 100 pages. This one was pretty rough. It sounds bad, but I don't really have high expectations when it comes to erotic romance, whatever, that I pick up on a whim from Kindle Unlimited. Well, before I get ahead of myself, this book takes place in a world where monsters from beneath Earth's surface have made a deal with the human population, where they ask for female sacrifices, and the human population gives these people, or these monsters, these sacrifices, and no one really knows what happens to these women afterwards. And our main character is one of the sacrifices right before the cutoff date. I think you have to be minimum or maximum 26 years old. She's 25, and she gets called to go down, and she's obviously super pissed about it. The beginning, the setup was fine, but the minute that she went below to meet the monsters, that's where it kind of got lost for me, because really quickly it turned into the reverse harem setup. But these monsters didn't have a corporeal body. They were described as black smoke mass thing, a mass of black smoke, and then there was a steamy scene with 3 of them, and I'm I don't what does that look like? The author's like describing like limbs and touching and kissing and all this kind of stuff, but I'm like, they don't have a physical body. Like, it kind of threw me for a little bit. Once we got to the underground, I thought there'd be like even more world building to understand like what this looks like, what's going on in the underground with all these monsters, and we got little to no description, which is kind of weird. All I can remember is that these monsters didn't really have like a physical form, and that they were in caves. Like, that's it. Just caves underground. It became really lackluster really fast for me, and I was just like not interested. I didn't really care what was going on, so I DNF'd it at like 100 pages in, which I don't DNF a lot, but I was not having fun with this. So after that, I did read The Bone Witch by Chupeco. This is a YA fantasy. In this book, we follow a young woman named Tia, and she finds out that she's a bone witch, which is not a great thing. A lot of people don't like bone witches in their society. I guess they're kind of shunned by most people. She meets a woman who is a bone witch herself, and this woman tells her that she will take her away and teach her how to like master her abilities and learn how to like properly integrate into society despite being part of a class of people that are not liked. This book also had some like chapter breaks that are set a few years into the future, so we can kind of see the difference between Tia when we first meet her as this young girl and a few years later on where she's a little bit more mature, and she's obviously gone through some things that we don't know quite yet. She has a little bit of a tougher shell in these flash forward scenes, and I'm really excited to see what happens to her that she gets to this point. But I did really enjoy the majority of this. There is a part of this book where Tia essentially joins like some sort of like parlor house that teaches her how to like be like a proper lady, very like coming of age almost type thing for young women with privilege, I should say. And I didn't really understand why Tia had to go through this. Bone witches are very rare, and why they're important to society is not necessarily whether they can hold a conversation with political figures and dancing and singing. From what I can gather, it's really important that bone witches like know magic, know how to fight, defend themselves, that kind of thing, the more physical aspects. But they really emphasize the like ladylike qualities that she has to learn, which I kind of thought was a waste of time. So that middle part was kind of weird, so I gave it 4 stars. But I feel like this character is going to go through one of those like maybe not becomes evil arc, but she kind of goes through like a morally gray arc where she's not trying to maintain a like high level of morality in a world where it doesn't seem that other people have the same morals. She does whatever she needs to in order to achieve her goal, whatever that may be. Again, I don't know, but from these like flash forward chapters, it looks like she becomes like a bad bitch, which I love. My favorite book that I read this month was Velvet Was the Night by Sylvia Moreno-Garcia. I love this. There's something about this author's writing that is like so addicting for me, and not in like I devour it in like one day type sitting, like the same way that someone might devour like a Sarah J Maas book or like a Cassandra Clare book. But with Sylvia Moreno-Garcia's writing and storytelling, I will put down the book, might read something else after that, and then after that, and I'm still thinking about her work. Even if I've read through 5 different stories, I always come back to this. Like, it stays like imprinted in my head, and I don't know why. I guess her writing just works for me like that well. This is a historical fiction crime noir. It takes place in like the 1970s Mexico City. We follow a character named Maite, and she is a very average woman with a very average life. She's a secretary at a law firm. She doesn't really like her life. One thing that I thought was really charming about her, that one thing that kind of stands out, that makes her stand out from like other characters that you've ever read before, is that she's like super obsessed with these like cartoon romance novels. The closest thing that I could like maybe relate it to is like slice of life shoujo like manga type stuff, but hers are more like soap opera like, and she's like super obsessed with these. That's the only thing that she really looks forward to, and you can tell pretty quickly that romance is something that she wants in life, but she hasn't gotten it, which definitely isn't a bad thing. It's okay if like a woman wants a loving, healthy relationship. And then one day her neighbor, who's this young beautiful woman, pretty much everything that Maite is not. She asked our main character if she could like dog sit for her, watch her apartment for like a few days, and our main character is like, yeah, sure, that's fine, whatever. And then her neighbor never returns and basically goes missing, and Maite kind of just inserts herself in like trying to find her neighbor as almost a kind of like something to do, because her life is pretty much very like hollow and empty. And yeah, that's pretty much where our story starts. We also follow a character named, well, he calls himself Elvis. We don't actually learn his name until like the very end of the book, and he's kind of involved with this disappearance in a different manner, and these characters' paths kind of cross at some point. I'll leave the story at that. This plot does also feature a lot of like conservative authoritarian governments and how hard they try to silence younger youths, typically left-leaning political thinkers. And you see a lot of that like in the background of this story. I don't think you need to know too much like politics of Mexico in the 1970s to understand. There might be some little things that might go over your head, but for the most part I think everyone can kind of understand what's going on. I really enjoyed this. It's actually pretty short, it's not so long. And then the last book I read was An English Bride in Scotland by Lynsay Sands. I think this is the first book in the English Brides, or the Scottish Highland Bride series. I read like book 6 or something, not knowing that it was a series from this author, and I wanted to go back and read the first one. And I think I finally found a Lynsay Sands book that I ended pretty positively with. The other 2 books I've read from this author have been like average to below average, because I kind of get lost in the middle of the story. Like the beginning is usually strong and then the ending is like cute or whatever, but this one I pretty much had a good time overall. In this book we follow a character who is an English woman, and when she was really young her parents dropped her off at, I don't know what the proper word is, but basically like a nunnery, I guess. Like she was supposed to be a nun, take her vows, and as she's older, she has not taken her vows yet, her mother comes and gets her and tells her that she's going to marry a Scottish laird, and she's like, I thought I was supposed to be a nun for the rest of my life. And her mom's like, no, don't worry about that. That's pretty much where the story starts. It's very charming, very quirky. I'm sure it's not historically accurate, like, at all, but who reads these for historical accuracy? They're supposed to be fun. The love interest just, like, wants to make his bride happy and, like, have a good time. There's usually some sort of, like, outside force trying to, like, meddle with the marriage, but happily ever afters all around. So yeah, it was good. I gave it like 3 stars. So those are all the books that I read during the month of March. Again, it wasn't a lot. Bad month personally, but I will say that I did find a very good book, which was Velvet Was the Night. Fantastic. I did DNF a book, which is unfortunate, but at least I didn't like waste my time. Let me know if you've ever read any of these, what your thoughts are about them. I like to hear anything you have to say in the comments down below. I will also link my socials down below, as well as some far more important links. Feel free to like, dislike, comment, or subscribe, or do neither. It's all cool with me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.